Hi, welcome to the fourth part of the uh, environment and economics lecture. This lecture is part of the lecture series of the Marxian economics course and is prepared for the Middlesex University Northern Cyprus campus. Well, last time we were um, talking on how we can basically uh, describe the way our economic system reacts to the to when uh, well the society or economic system reaches the limits of the sustainability, and basically um, basically we might also even discuss what how much the society well um, how much how likely it is for that economic system likely to reach the environmental limits also. Uh, when the society has a certain type of economic system. And in order to answer these questions, actually, for the capitalist system, especially, we should introduce characteristics of the capitalist system. And based on Marxian economics, at least, we might define certain elements of the system. First, capitalist system requires continuous expansion of the scale of production in order to remain healthy. Companies need at least companies need continuously invest, and basically those investments tend to produce more from the same thing. So that and they ideally would like to sell also more from the same thing, which means the companies very much need to um, um, which means companies will very much need to compete with each other uh, much more harshly if economic system doesn't grow, if economic system remains more or less at the same production level. In that case, the only way they can increase their sales is eating up their own production. So in order to remain healthy, the companies need to, and when they do to compete with each other more harshly, in that case, the companies also will more likely to create use their funds for that fight. They are more likely to decrease their profit level below the below. I mean, many of them will get loss or at least very little profits, and in that case, the economy will experience much harsher economic crisis, basically. Uh, so, in order to prevent this, we need a growing economy so that the companies can increase their sales. At least, not necessarily only by eating uh, each other's sales. At least there's also a potential to the market itself is also expanding. That's one characteristic. Well, the second characteristics: radical changes in capitalist system happens, whether it is inclusion of women, whether it is a new technological advancement. Those changes mostly happen at the time of when profit rates in the system are low. When profit rates are sufficiently high, companies don't take risks, so they don't make the groundbreaking innovations or don't apply those groundbreaking innovations because there's a risk involved when they involve those groundbreaking innovations. Um, and also at the systemic levels, the states, the countries don't make that much changes. That's the time for the incremental change days that people like to say, even left politicians, you can hear them. Well, you understand those big changes are not that much possible, so uh, at least I'm achieving something by doing a very little progress. Let's say I'm achieving some little progresses in the political system, a very little little transformation in, some very small policy changes, but that's at least something. So this large, big transformation of the social system itself, which integrate and economic system itself, doesn't happen that much in the times when the profit rates are relatively high. So to this we can add, after 1945 we have a new system where the system is introduced certain regulations and institutions that are regulating the market system. So basically now the market system is regulated and managed, but still it's at the center. I mean, the market is the ultimate place which is actually on which the economic system is revolving. But at certain points, the market is not allowed to go to its extreme. Basically, we control where the market is going, but we still see market as the main provider of the, let's say, wealth increase, economic benefits. Basically, those are things we have more or less seen in the previous parts. One thing we haven't seen is this one. Companies in capitalism try to externalize the cost. What does it mean? Actually, mostly when you see in different courses, this is mentioned by stating in capitalist system, companies tend to externalize costs and internalize benefits. What does it mean, internalizing benefits? Basically, when you produce something or consume something, basically, you might create certain benefits that are basically given to people other than the ones that are immediately paying to you. An example, you might have an open air concert at a stadium, and people outside of the stadium might hear the music and enjoy it. They get benefit, but they don't pay to the company that is actually organizing the concert. Of course, they might not be getting as much benefit as the people who are at the concert at the stadium, but they might still be getting some benefits. They might still enjoying themselves. For a long time, when I was staying, I stayed for a year in my grandmother's house, and there was a local tavern type of place which was playing music, and I really enjoyed the music at the nights they were playing. At the Beşiktaş Stadium, famously, over the stadium there's a hill, and that hill was able to see the stadium very clearly, and that hill was called Free Hill, Beleştepe. That's because people were able to see the game of Beşiktaş from that hill freely. Although it's ununderstandable, because you could also watch the game freely from the TVs, but some people like to watch the game there. So the companies rather basically get the money from those people who are getting benefits. So they want to get the benefits to themselves. They should from people who are actually getting those benefits freely. The company should basically get those benefits, find a way to sell those benefits, which it was initially providing more freely, basically. As for the costs, that's the other way around. I mean, the companies want to make the customers pay the cost. One example is, the common example is you might build a hospital, but if the hospital is inside of the city, the rent costs are higher. If the hospital is outside of the city, rent costs are lower. Well, if you build the hospital outside of the city, is the social cost less? Not necessarily, because inside of the city more people are living, and even if you live outside of the city, as long as you are not located right at the place where the hospital is stands, basically it might be easier to come to the inside of the city compared with the case when you need to go from a place outside of the city to another place outside of the city. So basically the travel costs of the people, both in terms of time and money, might increase when you have the hospital outside of the city. So those rent costs that are not paid by the hospital are externalized. in that case? Well, in that case, it's a private hospital, and it might be, unless it's a monopoly, it might be hurt by the fact that it's standing outside of the city. But basically, for example, when you take in the McDonald's, basically in McDonald's, they make you go to the counter and order the food, and then get the food for yourself. And this is thought as an innovation, as a fun thing in the fast food. I mean, it also increases the speed of the let's say, I mean, the service of the food. And if you see founder, actually, you can see, I mean, there was once in McDonald's-like restaurants, even the original McDonald's at first, the waiters, I mean, the people who serve your food. But this fact, the way McDonald's is now working, by actually letting you to order the food and then take the food and bring it to your table, is basically making McDonald's to externalize the service costs. When we are talking about the waste, I mean, the company might very well destroy the waste or make it less harmful for the environment. That would be a cost. Well, if it basically disposes waste, this might also create a cost to the society, especially if the waste limits of environment might be reached. But the company might very well want to externalize the cost of, let's say, the waste. Similar thing is also true for the resource extraction. There might be a free resource, but basically taking too much of this free resource might basically harm the society. But the company in capitalism, and that's actually the point of the tragedy of the commons, basically the social norms might very well be standing in a non-capitalist like society, where the basically the overall social rules, what other people get, might also be important. The sense of community is much more there, even in the economic type of relations, because in many ways, actually, this sense of community is necessary for economic survival also, as we have taught before. In capitalist system, sense of community disappears as the whole world economy integrates with each other, and now the big companies, even the small companies, are much more likely to extract as much resource as possible from the common resources, basically. And basically, when they do that, they externalize costs to the rest of the society. If the resource is depleted, they can find another resource. And anyway, when they extract a lot of resources, they are actually externalizing. They are actually externalizing, and the cost of that, getting too much of that resource, is something that is shared by the whole society, not by the company only. So, having mentioned these characteristics, now we can say, well, we might say two things. First, we will see how will market react, especially the price mechanism react, as in general, when waste side or resource side sustainability limits are reached. And here we will talk about the price mechanism, although we won't say the way market react, the way the market reduces the impact. And then we will talk on the different paths market can use to reduce its impact, and which path is available, basically. And once we have these paths, we might also introduce state and its reaction to the free reaction of the market, and whether state will improve the situation or make the situation even worse. That might be the question there, basically. When we are talking about on those paths, we will discuss also that aspect of those paths. So we are very close to the 15 minutes mark, so we will do that in the next part. See you in the next part.